The station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel among the stars. They called it Harmony Spire, a place where species from across the galaxy came to talk instead of fight. For 300 years, wars had ended here. Treaties had been signed here. Peace had been born here. Today, Ambassador Yuna Kong walked through its golden halls with hope in her heart. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She had spent 30 years of her life talking to aliens, learning their languages, understanding their ways. She believed that words could solve any problem. She believed that patience and respect could bridge any gap. Behind her walked her delegation. 12 humans in formal black suits, their faces calm and professional. They had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this station. They had prepared for months before that. Everything depended on today that the conference room was massive. A circular table sat in the center, large enough for representatives from 42 different species. Strange creatures filled the seats. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some looked like nothing Yuna had ever seen before. But she had learned long ago not to judge anyone by their appearance. At the head of the table sat High Arbiter Vorth. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that never seemed to blink. His species, the Vaulat, had ruled the galactic concord for 10,000 years. They considered themselves the wisest and oldest of all civilized beings. Vorth looked at Yuna the way a person might look at an insect. She took her seat and folded, her hands on the table. Around her, the alien representatives whispered to each other. She caught fragments of their conversations. Words like young species and barely spacefaring and aggressive primates floated through the air. Yuna ignored them. She had heard worse. The negotiations had been going on for 3 years. 3 years of meetings, proposals, and endless arguments. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago, and in that time they had expanded faster than anyone expected. They had built colonies on dozens of worlds. They had developed technology that surprised the elder species. They had grown strong. The Galactic Concord did not like this. They had imposed trade restrictions on human goods. They had denied humans access to major shipping routes. They had started small conflicts along the border, testing humanity's patience. And when humanity asked for peace talks, they had agreed with smiles that never reached their eyes. Now it was time for the final session. 3 years of work would end today, one way or another. Vorth stood and spread his 4 arms wide. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. We have gathered here to conclude the matter of the Terran Republic and their place in our galaxy. The Concord has been generous. We have listened to the humans. We have considered their requests. And now we present our final offer. Yuna leaned forward slightly. Her heart beat faster, but her face remained calm. The Terran Republic will surrender the colonies of New Sol, Bizin Prime, Inchin Station, and the Guangzhou System, Vorth said. These territories were claimed without proper authorization from the Concord. They will be redistributed to species with greater need. Whispers filled the room. Yuna felt her hands tighten, but she did not speak. Furthermore, Vorth continued, the Terran Republic will submit to population monitoring. Your species breeds too quickly. This threatens the balance of resources in the galaxy. Concord observers will be stationed on Earth to ensure compliance. One of the human delegates inhaled sharply. Yuna raised a hand slightly, and he fell silent. Finally, the Terran Republic will accept permanent observer status in the Concord. You may watch our proceedings. You may not vote. You may not propose legislation. You may not challenge decisions that affect your people. Vorth smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. This is more than fair for a species that has existed among the stars for merely half a century. The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Yuna. she stood slowly. Her movements were calm and deliberate. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. The Terran Republic rejects these terms. Voreth's smile faded. You reject our generosity? There is no generosity in your offer, Una said. You ask us to abandon our people. You ask us to accept supervision like children. You ask us to surrender our voice in matters that affect our future. This is not peace. This is submission. Voreth laughed. The sound was cold and cruel. And what will you do, little human? Your ships are few. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. You have existed for a mere heartbeat in the life of this galaxy. He leaned forward, his 4 eyes gleaming. You are clever animals playing at civilization. Nothing more. The alien representatives laughed with him. Some of them. Not all. Una noticed that Elder Thal, an ancient being from a species nearly as old as the Valani, did not laugh. He watched her with something that might have been worry. These negotiations are concluded, Voreth announced. The human delegation will remain here as our guests until Earth accepts our terms. Consider it motivation for your government to see reason. Guards moved to block the exits. They were large creatures, heavily armed, their faces hidden behind helmets. Una's delegates looked at her with fear in their eyes, but Una did not look afraid. She looked at Voreth, and she smiled. It was a small smile, thin and cold, like the edge of a blade. Elder Thal saw it, and something in his ancient heart turned to ice. You have made, Una said quietly, a terrible mistake. Voreth laughed again. A mistake? We hold all the power here, Ambassador. What can your primitive species possibly do? Una said nothing. She simply sat back down, folded her hands, and waited across the galaxy. The broadcast of this moment spread to every world with a receiver. Billions of beings watched the human ambassador be insulted and imprisoned. Most of them expected Earth to panic, to beg, to surrender. They did not know humans. On Earth, in a city called Sol, a young boy watched the broadcast with his grandfather. The old man had served in wars long ago when humans still fought each other. He watched Voreth laugh at Ambassador Una, and his weathered face grew hard. What will happen now, grandfather? The boy asked. The old man was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Now they will learn. Learn what? The same lesson everyone learns, sooner or later. The old man looked at his grandson with eyes that had seen too much. They will learn that you should never make humanity angry. In orbit above Earth, lights began to turn on across the massive shipyards that circled the planet. Ships that had been sleeping woke up. Soldiers who had been resting received messages on their devices. Factories that had been quiet began to hum. The galaxy thought they had trapped humanity. They did not understand that they had only awakened something ancient and terrible, something that humanity had carried in their blood since this first human picked up a rock and decided to fight back against a world that wanted to kill them. War was coming, and the galaxy was not ready. The message reached Earth in 6 hours. Every government official, every military commander, every citizen with a screen saw it. They watched High Arbiter Voreth laugh at their ambassador. They watched guards surround their people. They watched as the galaxy treated humanity like animals in a cage. Then they watched Una smile. Admiral Tyo Park stood in the war room beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens covered every wall, showing maps of human space, Concord territories, and the vast darkness between them. Around him sat the most powerful military minds on Earth. No one spoke for a long time after the broadcast ended. Finally, a young officer broke the silence. Sir, what do we do? Taiho was 60 years old, with a face like carved stone and gray hair cut short. He had commanded ships for 40 years. He had fought pirates, stopped rebellions, and protected human colonies from threats that most civilians never knew about. In all that time, he had never lost his calm. He did not lose it now. "We wait," he said. The young officer looked confused. "Wait, sir? They have our ambassador. They have our people. I know." Taiho turned to face the screens. "But we do not act in anger. We act with purpose. Bring me Dr. Hannah Cho." Hannah arrived within the hour. She was a small woman with glasses and messy hair, but her mind was sharper than any weapon. She had spent her entire life studying one thing: war. Not just human wars, but the wars of every species in the galaxy. She knew how the Concord fought. She knew their strengths and weaknesses. She knew things that would make their generals weep. "Tell me," Taiho said, "what the Concord expects us to do." Hannah pulled up data on the main screen. "They expect panic. They expect our government to send desperate messages, offering to negotiate. They expect us to make mistakes because we are afraid." She paused. "They believe we are like the other young species they have bullied. They think we will break, and what should we do instead?" Hannah smiled. It was the same kind of smile Yuna had shown Vorath. "Nothing." The room stirred with confusion. Hannah raised her hand. "Let me explain. The Concord has fought many wars, but they have never fought a war against silence. When they bully a species, that species screams, begs, threatens. The Concord responds to noise. They do not know what to do with quiet." She looked at Taiho. "We give them nothing. No messages. No threats. No demands. We simply ... prepare." Taiho nodded slowly. "And when we are ready?" "We do not warn them. We do not give them time to prepare. We strike everywhere at once with everything we have." Hannah's voice was cold. "They think we are primitive. They think our ships are few. They do not know what we have been building in secret. They do not know what humanity becomes when we decide to fight. The Parliament voted that night. The decision was not difficult. Every representative from every nation on Earth voted the same way. There was no debate, no argument. For the first time in human history, every country, every culture, every person agreed on one thing. War. But it would not be the kind of war the galaxy expected out on Harmony Spire. 3 days passed in silence. Ambassador Yuna and her delegation remained in their quarters, guarded but unharmed. They ate the food they were given. They slept in shifts. They waited. Emissary Nira came to visit them on the 3rd day. She was young for her species, with silver skin and large, dark eyes. Unlike Vorath, she did not look at humans with contempt. She looked at them with curiosity. "Your government has not responded," she said to Yuna. "The High Arbiter is ... surprised." Yuna was reading a book. She did not look up. "Is he?" He expected demands, threats, attempts to negotiate. Nira sat down across from her. "Instead, there is nothing. Your communication channels are silent. Your border stations have gone dark. We cannot even detect your patrol ships anymore." "How strange," Yuna said calmly, turning a page. Nira leaned forward. "Ambassador, I am not your enemy. I opposed this action. Many of us did, but Vorath has the Council's support, and his word is law." She paused. "I am trying to understand your people. Help me understand. What are you waiting for?" Yuna finally looked up. Her eyes met Nira's, and for a moment, the alien saw something in them that made her feel very small. "We are waiting," Yuna said, "for them to realize what they have done." That night, the first reports came in. A listening post on the edge of Concord space went silent. Then another. Then another. 12 stations, spread across thousands of light years, all went dark within 6 hours. No distress signals. No warnings. Just silence. Warlord Dren was the Concord's military commander. He was a massive creature, covered in thick scales and natural armor. He had won 100 battles. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed fleets. He was not afraid of anything. But when he looked at the map showing the dead stations, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Where are the human ships? He demanded. Our sensors should have detected them. Our early warning systems should have triggered. His officers had no answers. They searched every frequency, every spectrum, every method of detection they knew. They found nothing. Perhaps it is a malfunction, one officer suggested weakly. Dren was about to respond when another alarm sounded. A colony world on the outer edge of Concord space was under attack. 30 human warships had appeared from nowhere, weapons already firing. The colony's defense fleet, caught completely off guard, was destroyed in minutes. Impossible, Dren whispered. We should have seen them coming. We should have had days of warning. But the humans had given no warning. They had moved through space like ghosts, invisible and silent. They had struck without mercy and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Over the next 12 hours, it happened again and again. Defense platforms destroyed. Supply stations captured. Communication relays turned to debris. The Concord's carefully built network of eyes and ears across the galaxy went blind and deaf. Earth sent no message. No declaration of war. No demands. Just ships appearing from darkness, destroying everything in their path, and disappearing again. Elder Thal requested an emergency meeting with Vorth. The High Arbiter looked annoyed when he arrived. What is it now, Thal? I am busy managing this situation. You are not managing anything, Thal said. His voice was tired, afraid. You have awakened something you do not understand. They are primitives. This is merely a tantrum. They will tire soon and come begging for peace. Thal shook his ancient head. You watched the same history files I did, Vorith. You saw what humans did to each other for thousands of years. The wars they fought. The weapons they built. The lengths they went to for victory. He stepped closer. We are not fighting a young species throwing a tantrum. We are fighting a species that has perfected the art of killing. And we just made them very, very angry. On Harmony's spire, Una heard the distant sounds of alarms. She put down her book and looked out the window at the stars. It has begun, she said quietly. One of her delegates came to stand beside her. How long will it last? Una was quiet for a moment. Then she said, until they understand? Understand what? That we are not animals to be caged. Her reflection in the window smiled that cold, thin smile. That we are not children to be punished. That we are humanity. And when we go to war, we do not stop until it is finished. Outside, another alarm began to wail. The galaxy was learning its lesson. The Galactic Concord had fought 17 major wars in its 10,000 years of existence. They had developed strategies refined over centuries. They understood supply lines, fleet movements, and the slow grind of attrition. They knew how wars were supposed to work. Humanity did not fight the way wars were supposed to work. Colonel Do-Young Beek stood on the surface of Verith Prime, the third Concord world to fall in 2 weeks. Around him, his soldiers moved through the ruins of what had once been a military base. Smoke rose from destroyed vehicles. Prisoners sat in neat rows, their hands bound, their faces showing confusion more than fear. They had expected to die. Humans were supposed to be savage after all. Instead, the human soldiers gave them water and medical care. They treated wounds and asked questions in calm, professional voices. They did not torture. They did not execute. They simply won. And then they showed Mercy Dot, It confused the prisoners more than cruelty ever could. Do-Yun was 45 years old, with broad shoulders and a scar across his jaw from a fight he never talked about. He had grown up in the mountains of Korea, in a village where his grandfather taught him the old ways of war, strategy, patience, importance of knowing your enemy better than they knew themselves. Colonel, one of his officers approached with a tablet. We have finished securing the base. Enemy casualties are minimal. Our casualties are 0. Good. Do-Yun looked at the prisoners. Make sure they are fed. We move to the next target in 6 hours. The officer hesitated. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. I do not understand our strategy. We could destroy their cities. We could break their infrastructure. We could make them suffer for what they did to Ambassador Yuna. The officer looked frustrated. Instead, we capture bases and treat prisoners like guests. Why? Do-Yun turned to face him. Tell me, Lieutenant, what happens when you kill an enemy? They die. Yes, and what happens to the war when they die? The lieutenant thought about it. It continues. Their friends and family want revenge. Exactly. Do-Yun gestured at the prisoners. These soldiers have families. They have children who are watching the news, wondering if their parents are alive. If we kill them, those children grow up hating us. The war never ends. He paused. But if we capture them, treat them well, send them home when this is over, those children grow up knowing that humans could have killed their parents and chose not to. The war ends, and it stays ended. The lieutenant was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. I understand, sir. Good. Now get the men ready to move. While Do-Yun conquered worlds on the ground, Admiral Tai-Ho Park commanded the fleet from the bridge of the Magongwa, humanity's greatest warship. Captain Woojin Lee stood beside him, watching the tactical display with sharp eyes. They had been fighting for 4 weeks. In that time, they had destroyed more Concord military assets than any enemy in history. Shipyards that had taken decades to build were now debris. Fuel depots that supplied entire fleets were captured or destroyed. Communication networks that had connected the Concord for thousands of years were dark and silent. And still, the Concord could not understand how. Admiral Woojin pointed at the display. The enemy fleet is regrouping at Sector 7. It looks like they are planning a counterattack. Tai-Ho studied the display. 300 Concord warships gathering information. It was an impressive force by any standard. Any standard except humanity's. How long until our reinforcements arrive? 4 hours, sir. Tai-Ho nodded. We do not need reinforcements. Signal the fleet. We attack now. Woojin blinked. Sir, they outnumber us 3-1. Numbers are not everything, Captain. Tai-Ho smiled slightly. Humans have been winning battles against superior numbers since we first learned to throw rocks. Tell me, have you studied the Battle of Myongyang? Admiral Yi Sun-sin. 13 ships against 300. Total victory. Exactly. The enemy expects us to wait for help. They expect us to be cautious. Instead, we attack before they are ready. We hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we show them that numbers mean nothing against will. Tai-Ho sat back in his command chair. Signal all ships. Weapons hot. Attack Formation Delta. The battle lasted 3 hours. The Concord fleet had expected the humans to fight like other species, to form lines, to exchange fire at long range, to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Instead, the human ships dove straight into the enemy formation, weapons firing and all. Directions. They moved with impossible coordination, each ship knowing exactly where its allies would be, exactly when to fire and when to dodge. They used asteroids as cover. They used wreckage as shields. They did things that no tactical program had ever predicted. When it was over, 200 Concorde ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 12. Warlord Dren received the report in silence. His hands trembled as he read the casualty figures. Around him, his staff watched with fear in their eyes. How? He whispered. How is this possible? No one had an answer. Across the galaxy, other species watched the war unfold with growing horror. They had thought the Concorde was invincible. They had thought humanity was weak. Now they saw human soldiers appearing from underground tunnels that should not have existed. They saw human ships hiding in places that sensors could not detect. They saw a species that had spent thousands of years fighting itself, perfecting every aspect of warfare, finally turning all that deadly knowledge outward. Elder Thal addressed the Concorde Council in emergency session. His voice was heavy with exhaustion and fear. I warned you, he said. I warned all of you. We studied their history. We saw what they did to each other, the weapons they built, the tactics they developed. We saw all of this, and we thought it made them barbaric, primitive. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. We were fools. High Arbiter Vorith stood at the head of the table, his 4 eyes dim with shock. What do you suggest we do? I do not know if there is anything we can do, Thal said. We poked a sleeping beast. Now it is awake, and it is hungry. He looked around the council chamber. Every species that has underestimated humanity has regretted it. Every enemy that thought them weak has been proven wrong. We are simply the latest in a very long line of fools. They cannot fight forever, Vorith said desperately. They are a small species. They will run out of ships. They will run out of soldiers. Thal shook his head. You still do not understand. They have not sent a portion of their fleet. They have not called up reserves. Every human ship, every human soldier, every human weapon is fighting this war right now. Their entire civilization has become a war machine. He paused. Earth itself is defended by automated systems. They have committed everything to this fight. Everything. The council fell silent. What kind of species does that? Someone whispered. Thal closed his eyes. A species that has decided to win, no matter the cost. On the Mugoma, Captain Wu Jing Li walked through the corridors after the battle. His crew was exhausted, but triumphant. They had faced impossible odds and won. They had proven that humanity could not be bullied. He found Admiral Tejo standing alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Sir, is everything all right? Tejo did not turn around. I was thinking about my grandfather, Captain. He told me stories when I was young. Stories about our ancestors. About the wars they fought, the enemies they defeated. He paused. He always said that the greatest weapon of our people was not any sword or ship. It was our refusal to give up. Our ability to endure anything, suffer anything, and keep fighting until we won. It seems he was right, sir. Yes. Tejo finally turned around. His face was tired but determined. We are not finished yet, Captain. The Concorde still has their capital. They still have Warlord Dren, and they still have our ambassador. His eyes hardened. It is time to end this war. Wu Jin straightened. What are your orders, Admiral? Set course for the Concorde homeworld. Signal all fleet commanders. Tejo's voice was cold as space itself. We are going to teach them a lesson they will never forget. The fleet turned and began to move. The final battle was coming. The Concorde homeworld was called Velaris. It was a beautiful planet of purple oceans and silver forests, home to the Vallani for over 50,000 years. Great cities rose toward the sky, filled with art and culture and history that predated human civilization by millennia. It had never been attacked. Not once in all those thousands of years. The very idea was unthinkable. The Concord was too powerful. Their defenses were too strong. No enemy would dare. Humanity dared. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the Magungwa as the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velar system. Around him, 500 human warships appeared from nothing, their weapons already charging. Before them stood the greatest defense network in the galaxy. Orbital platforms bristling with guns. Minefields stretching across millions of kilometers. A defensive fleet of 400 ships, the best the Concord had left. And at the center of it all, the massive Citadel station, where Warlord Dren commanded his forces. Captain Wujin Li studied the tactical display. Sir, their defenses are impressive. This will not be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, Captain. Taiho's voice was calm. But we have something they do not. What is that, sir? Reasons to win. Taiho turned to face his crew. Our ambassador is still a prisoner. Our people were insulted and caged. Every soldier on this ship has family who watched that broadcast, who saw the galaxy laugh at us. He paused. We are not fighting for territory. We are not fighting for resources. We are fighting because they told us we were nothing. And we are going to prove them wrong. The crew straightened with pride. All ships, Taiho commanded. Attack. On Harmony Spire, far from the battle, Ambassador Yuna Kang sat in her quarters and listened to the distant sounds of chaos. Alarms wailed. Guards shouted. The station shook as ships departed in panic, racing to defend the homeworld. Emissary Nira appeared at her door. The young alien looked terrified. Your fleet is attacking Velaris, she said. The homeworld itself. No one has ever attacked the homeworld. Yuna stood and walked to the window. Then it is time someone did. Do you understand what this means? If your ships destroy our defenses, if they reach the planet, Nira's voice broke. My family is on Velaris. Millions of families, children. Yuna turned to face her. Her expression was not cruel, but it was hard. I asked for peace, emissary. I came to this station with respect in my heart and compromise on my lips. Your leaders answered with contempt. They called my people animals. They imprisoned us like criminals. She paused. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. You will slaughter innocents? No. Yuna's voice softened slightly. We will win. There is a difference. She stepped closer to Nira. I know you are afraid. I know you think we are monsters. But watch what happens next. Watch and understand who we really are. At Velaris, the battle raged like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved through the minefields with impossible precision, guided by calculations that alien computers could not match. They took out defense platforms with surgical strikes, destroying weapons while leaving life support intact. They pushed through the defensive fleet with relentless determination, losing ships but never stopping, never slowing, never giving the enemy time to regroup. Warlord Dren commanded from Citadel Station, throwing everything he had at the human fleet: missiles, drones, energy weapons that could crack planets. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to every tactic, countered every strategy, exploited every weakness. How? Dren roared at his officers. How do they know what we are going to do before we do it? The answer was simple, but he would never understand it. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting wars against themselves. Every tactic the Concord used, humans had used first. Every strategy, every trick, every desperate gamble had been tried and countered in human history. The Concord was fighting with methods that humans had mastered and moved beyond centuries ago. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Concord defense fleet was shattered. The orbital platforms were dark and silent. The minefields were cleared, and 500 human ships hung in orbit above Velaris. Their weapons trained on the world below. Colonel Doyen Beak led the assault on Citadel Station. His soldiers breached the hull at 12 points simultaneously, moving through corridors with deadly efficiency. They did not kill unnecessarily. They targeted weapons, communications, and command centers. They captured soldiers instead of executing them. Doyun found Warlord Dren in the central command room. The massive alien stood alone. His officers either fled or captured. He held a weapon in his clawed hands, ready to fight to the death. "Come then," Dren growled. "Come and kill me, human. I will not surrender to primitives." Doyun looked at him for a long moment. Then, to Dren's confusion, he set down his weapon. He walked forward, unarmed, and sat down in a chair across from the warlord. "I am not here to kill you," Doyun said quietly. "I am here to talk." Dren stared at him. "Talk? You have destroyed my fleet. You have conquered my station. You hold my homeworld hostage. And you want to talk?" "Yes. Why?" Doyun leaned back. "Because killing you would be easy. Any fool can destroy. Any child can pull a trigger. But ending a war, really ending it, so that it never comes back? That is hard." He looked at Dren with eyes that had seen too much death. "I have killed many beings in this war. I will kill many more if I have to. But I do not want to. I want this to be over. And for it to be over, truly over, we cannot just defeat you. We have to help you understand." "Understand what?" "That we are not your enemies." Doyun's voice was tired but sincere. "We never wanted to be. We came to this galaxy hoping to find friends, allies, partners in exploration. Instead, we found species who looked at us and saw only a threat to be controlled. You pushed us. You insulted us. You tried to cage us." He paused. "What did you think would happen?" Dren was silent for a long time. Finally, he lowered his weapon. "We thought you would submit," he admitted. "Every other young species submitted. We thought you were the same. We are not the same." Doyun stood. "We are human. We do not submit. We do not kneel. We do not accept being treated as less than what we are." He extended his hand. "But we are also not monsters. We do not want to rule you. We do not want to destroy you. We just want to live among the stars as equals." Dren looked at the hand. In his culture, such a gesture was foreign. But he understood its meaning. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached out and took it. "The war is over," Doyon said. "Let us make sure it stays that way." On Harmony Spire, Ambassador Yuna Kong walked out of her quarters for the first time in weeks. The guards who had imprisoned her were gone, fled to the homeworld. The station was nearly empty. She made her way to the communication center, where Emissary Nira was waiting. The young alien looked at her with new eyes that had watched the battle, seen the human ships spare the planet, seen the soldiers offer mercy to their defeated enemies. "I do not understand you," Nira whispered. "You could have destroyed us. You could have burned Velaris to ash. Instead, you stopped." Yuna sat down at the communication console. "We are not what you think we are, Commissary. We are not conquerors or destroyers. We are simply a people who refuse to be treated as less than we are." She began inputting commands. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have a message to send." She opened a channel that would broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Every species, every government, every being with a receiver would hear her words. "This is Ambassador Yuna Kong of the Terran Republic," she began. "The war is over. The Concord is fallen. Their fleet is destroyed. Their homeworld is under our control." She paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. But we are not here to conquer. We are not here to rule. We are here to make something clear. She stood, her voice rising with quiet power. The Terran Republic did not seek this war. We asked for respect, and you answered with contempt. We asked for fairness, and you answered with imprisonment. So we answered with the only language you left us. She looked directly into the camera. Now let us talk about peace. Real peace. Between equals. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched. They had seen humanity's wrath. Now they saw something else. Something unexpected. They saw mercy, and they began to understand. 6 months had passed since the broadcast that ended the war. The Treaty of Sol was signed on a space station orbiting Earth. In a ceremony watched by every species in the galaxy, representatives from 42 worlds sat around a table that had been built specifically for this moment. Large enough to hold them all, designed so that no seat was higher than any other. Ambassador Yuna Kong sat among them as an equal. No longer a prisoner. No longer a curiosity. An equal. The treaty was simple. The galactic concord would continue to exist, but its structure would change. Young species would have full voting rights. Trade routes would be open to all. No species would be called primitive or be treated as less than any other. The galaxy would move forward together, as partners, not as masters and servants. High Arbiter Vorth was not there. He had been removed from power by his own people, who blamed him for the disaster he had caused. His replacement was a Vellani named Sorth, who had spoken against the war from the beginning. She approached Yuna after the signing, her 4 eyes filled with something that looked like shame. "I wish to apologize," Sorth said quietly. "Not just for myself, but for all my people. We were arrogant. We were cruel. We treated your species with contempt, and we paid a terrible price for it." She bowed her head. "I hope, in time, we can become friends." Yuna studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "We did not fight this war to make enemies, Arbiter. We fought it because we had no other choice. The door to friendship was always open. It still is." Sorath looked up with surprise and hope in her eyes. "Truly?" "Truly." Yuna smiled, and this time it was warm. "We are human. We hold grudges, but we also forgive. We remember insults, but we also remember kindness. Give us kindness, and we will return it 100-fold. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for weeks. In every city, on every continent, people gathered to honor those who had fought and those who had fallen. Parades filled the streets. Songs were sung. Stories were told that would be passed down for generations. Admiral Tiho Park refused to participate in the celebrations. He returned to his home in the mountains of Korea, to the small village where he had grown up, and sat alone in his grandfather's garden. Captain Wujing Li found him there, staring at a small pond filled with golden fish. "Admiral, the president wants to give you a medal, the highest honor our nation can offer." Taiho did not look up. "I have enough medals, Captain. They do not bring back the dead." Wujin sat down beside him. "We won, sir. We defended our people. We earned respect. Is that not worth celebrating? We did what was necessary." Taiho finally looked at him. "I do not regret it. If I had to do it again, I would make the same choices. But war is not something to celebrate. It is something to survive." He paused. "Every ship we destroyed had a crew. Every base we captured had soldiers with families. We were right to fight, but we should never forget the cost." They sat in silence for a while. Then Wujin asked, "What will you do now, sir?" "Retire, I think." Taiho smiled slightly. "I am 60 years old. I have fought enough wars for one lifetime. It is time for younger people to lead." He looked at Wu Jing. People like you, Captain. Or should I say, Admiral Li? Wu Jing straightened with surprise. Sir, the promotion came through this morning. They want you to command the First Fleet. Tai Ho stood and placed a hand on Wu Jing's shoulder. You have earned it. Lead well. Protect our people. And remember what I taught you. What is that, sir? War is easy. Peace is hard. Any fool can destroy. It takes wisdom to build. Tai Hao looked out at the mountains in the distance. Our job now is not to prepare for the next war. It is to make sure there never is a next war. Emissary Nira became the first alien ambassador to Earth. She arrived on a shuttle filled with gifts from her world, symbols of the peace that both sides hoped would last. Dr. Hana Cho met her at the landing pad, curious to meet the aliens she had heard so much about. Welcome to Earth, Hana said, bowing slightly. Nira returned the bow. Thank you. I have been looking forward to this for months. She looked around at the blue sky, the green trees, the humans watching from a distance. It is beautiful here. Different from my world, but beautiful. Would you like a tour? Nira nodded eagerly. Yes, I want to understand your people. I want to know what makes you the way you are. Hannah led her through the streets of the city, explaining human history as they walked. The wars they had fought against each other. The empires that had risen and fallen. The terrible weapons they had created. The even more terrible things they had survived. Nira listened with growing amazement. Your species has suffered so much. Wars, plagues, disasters, cruelty beyond imagination. How did you survive? Because we refused to give up. Hannah stopped in front of a memorial wall, where the names of soldiers who had fallen in the recent war were carved in stone. We have faced extinction many times. Climate change, nuclear weapons, diseases that killed millions. Every time, we found a way to continue. Not because we are strong or smart or special, but because we simply refuse to accept defeat. That is what frightened us, I think. Nira touched one of the names on the wall. We looked at your history and saw only violence. We did not see the resilience, the determination, the refusal to surrender. She turned to Hannah. We thought that made you dangerous. We are dangerous, Hannah admitted. We are capable of terrible things, but we are also capable of wonderful things. Art, music, love, kindness. We are a species of contradictions. We can be the cruelest beings in the universe and the most compassionate. She smiled. The key is to bring out the compassion instead of the cruelty. Your people made the mistake of bringing out our dark side. We hope now to show you the light. Nira spent years studying human culture. She learned their languages, ate their food, celebrated their holidays. She made friends among them, real friends, beings she cared about and who cared about her. And slowly, she began to understand what Elder Thal had glimpsed too late. Humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or tactics. It was their unity. When threatened, they came together. When challenged, they supported each other. Species that had spent centuries fighting found common ground in minutes when faced with an outside threat. The Concord had tried to divide and conquer humanity. Instead, they had united them more than ever before. Colonel Do-Yoon Beek returned home after the war to find a letter waiting for him. It was from Warlord Dren, the enemy he had shown mercy. The letter was short. You spared my life when you did not have to. You treated my soldiers with dignity when you could have treated them with cruelty. I have thought about this every day since the war ended. I was wrong about your species. We were all wrong. I do not know if we can ever be friends, but I wanted you to know that I respect you, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand the people who showed mercy to their enemies. Do-Yoon read the letter twice. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in a box with other memories. Letters from soldiers who had served under him. Medals he never wore. Photographs of friends who did not come home. His daughter found him sitting in his garden that evening, looking at the stars. "What are you thinking about, Father?" "The war." He pulled her close. "And what comes after?" "What comes after?" Do Yun smiled. "The hard part. The part where we build instead of destroy. Where we make friends instead of enemies." He looked up at the stars, where human ships now traveled freely among alien worlds. "We proved we could fight. Now we have to prove we can do something harder. We have to prove we can live in peace." In her office on Earth, Dr. Hana Cho finished writing her history of the war. It was a massive work, thousands of pages documenting every battle, every decision, every moment of courage and sacrifice. She had spent months interviewing soldiers and commanders, ambassadors and prisoners. She had tried to tell the truth. Even when it was ugly dot, she wrote the final line and sat back, reading it one last time. They called us young. They called us primitive. They called us animals. They learned, as all our enemies eventually learn, that humanity's patience is not weakness. It is the calm before a storm that reshapes worlds. And when the storm passes, we do not rule the ruins. We rebuild them together with anyone willing to take our hand. She saved the document and sent it to her publisher. Across the galaxy, peace held. Trade flourished. Ships from 100 worlds traveled together through the stars. The species that had once looked down on humanity now worked beside them, learned from them, grew to respect them. And in every corner of the galaxy, beings told stories about the species from Earth, the people who refused to kneel, the people who fought with terrible fury and showed mercy to the defeated, the people who proved that young did not mean weak, and that patience was not the same as submission. The galaxy had tried to put humanity in its place. Instead, humanity had shown them all exactly where that place was at the table, as equals, respected not because they begged for it, but because they had earned it. And across the stars, every species remembered the lesson they had learned when peace talks failed. When you make humanity angry, the galaxy learns what war truly means. But when you make humanity your friend, the galaxy learns something even more important, what peace truly means.